How many of you are exhausted about spending money and looking at all the tools being coming at you and throwing out there and going, why can't I just do what I'm doing today and just be more effective about it? At least that's what I'm hoping you're asking. Hey, everybody, thanks for showing up today. We want to just kind of walk through and talk to you about how you can maximize tools you already have. How are you handling budgeting and still lead generating effectively?
I've been in the real estate business since 1997. And I remember in 2001, when I first started, I simply wanted to just figure out how to not spend a lot of money lead generating. So I walked my neighborhood. When I realized that I could leverage the tools that I have access to every single day, it changed a little bit. So one thing that we do is we like to mail every single month to potential buyers. When I say potential buyers, I mean people that are renting out properties that found a rental property using a real estate agent. And so I like to send out a postcard. Sometimes it's warning renting is hazardous to your wealth. Sometimes it's what if you paid rent for 10 years? And as we're having this conversation, rents are no longer $600 a month. You might be able to find something at $1,500 a month in our market. And so the postcard that I like to send out shows what it would look like if someone paid rent monthly at $1,500 a year. And I like to showcase 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years, and then all the way up to $3,500 a month. And if you're spending $3,500 a month for 10 years, that's $420,000, assuming your rent doesn't go up. And what people don't know is, or you might know as a real estate agent, is rent increases about 5% every year. So I like to send out this postcard and my favorite postcard is when we send it out in January that says reinvest your tax refund into a down payment. And I like to use a landing page. Now, since we started doing this, I've convinced my husband, Mark, to do it. And if you don't know Mark, he is someone that likes to keep it easy. And so when I got him to start sending out mailers, he sent out a mailer months ago. And I would say about 2 years ago when he sent out a mailer, the mailer went out to Carroll Stream, Illinois, and he got a phone call. And he got a phone call from a banker, the person that he sees almost every day when he goes into the bank. And he got a phone call and said, "Hey, my daughter has your postcard. What do you do? And she knew we were real estate agents. And so she actually sent Mark a picture of her daughter holding the postcard. And 2 years later, as we're having this conversation, July 2025, this client actually bought a home. And it was all because her daughter said, "Mommy, can we buy a home?" And we often don't realize how easy this was. I pulled a list from our multiple listing service, off market rentals, mailed to a neighborhood, and someone called. Does it convert right away? Maybe, maybe not. But I can tell you that this actually works.
Right. And that's what we're hoping to show you guys today, right? One of the things that we're trying to make sure, because we're kind of driven by this conversation, is we want to give you a roadmap. We want to give you a roadmap that helps you stay away from the shiny objects and starts being a little more effective about how we chase strategically business that's already available at your fingertips.
And so we're going to talk to you about how to leverage the tools that you have access to every single day, from targeting and looking for home sellers, looking for potential buyers, maybe even pre-foreclosures, because we're now starting to see those, and using data to lead generate, and then even creating content for social media marketing.
Right. And we kind of determine this as the warehouse of gold. The way we kind of look at this is there are so many opportunities for you to attract through getting buyers by chasing the renters, right? We can also come out there and look at it from the data that exists out there and using either yourself as the predictive analytics or using that data and third-party tools to be predictive analytics. We're also looking for like expireds and cancels. We want to create landing pages, or you can create landing pages for yourselves, as well as content marketing. It's kind of what I call the 3 C's. We've got communication, cultivation, and conversion. And if we're not doing all three of these, either online or in person, we're not doing that. And we have tools out there. We all have tools out there to help us make that money. So a big first example is renters. We just kind of hinted at it earlier. I love renters. I think it's a not obvious solution because those renters can become buyers, which means they're homeowners now for us, right? And going back to Carrie's $3,500 check, now if you're buying a home, it's a bigger check, but they're saving money throughout that time, and we're helping them build that gold. And it's a really simple process. We just look for rented properties. They were rented. So the way we typically teach this, you look for an area, you look for a certain price point, right? Because not every price point is buyable. Not every price point in rent can someone buy. But what we want to do then is look somewhere 10, 9. Me and Carrie differ in our opinion on how that one works. But we
Maybe
look
I'll
a
say
little,
mine after yours.
we look at 10 months back, mostly for the fact that, at least in our areas, traditionally speaking, a lot of lease agreements need a 60-day notification. So if we're looking at that point in time, it's there.
And
Six
and this
months,
is how I like to look at it. Is I say go back 9 months, and the reason why I say go back 9 months is because you're right. In most areas, you need, if you have an annual lease, you need a 60-day notice. Now, it could vary by state, but if I know I have to give a 60-day notice as a tenant and as a real estate agent, I like to go back 9 months because it gives me about a 30-day window to target someone that may not have made a decision the first time I start mailing. And for me, if I go back 10 months, I'm now looking for the low hanging fruit. And instead of just thinking this as renter to owner, I could be looking at this as renter to rent again. Or maybe even the landlord might want to list it for rent or for sale.
well, and that's a hint for me because that's I do like the 6 months. I like being a little bit in the middle of this because we want to have multiple touches in the conversation. And to be honest, as Carrie just hinted, one of the things I absolutely love about renters is there's at least two audiences that you can market to with this. One is the renter; they're either going to buy or rent. There's really only two options. I mean, there's a third, but really there's only two options. Or better yet, we're getting very close to back to an investor market, which means now we can be chasing those investors at the same time saying, hey, do you want to sell or do you want to buy more? Or do you want to collateralize your units and buy bigger, right? Depending on what audience you want. So there are, again, it's the warehouse of gold. I think renters are just such an untapped resource for us to go into. As you're seeing here, you're seeing, as you're seeing in a lot of areas, you're seeing that we have a lot of opportunities. We just did a quick one, not recently in a local area, Carroll Stream, 39 properties just with that simple search basis, right? If we look at Kissimmee, there was many, many more, almost 60 of them, right? That's 60 touches. That's a bunch of conversations we can have with people that we have not tapped into yet. So please make sure we
What's
take advantage of
interesting,
it.
what's interesting is I think when we were looking at Kissimmee is that there were well over 300, but if you put in a rent price of 3,500 or more, you got closer to that 60. And that's where grabbing this list is how I leverage sending out the postcard because a lot of times people don't realize, wait a minute, if I'm spending $3,500 a month for rent, right? I'm paying off my landlord's house. And Justin, here's what's interesting is I actually went to see, I had a referral in a subdivision or a neighborhood in Illinois, and the person that was I was referred to bought a property, new construction, but never moved in. Ended up in Glendale Heights, bought new construction, but never moved in, moved up north, still in Illinois. And when I went to the property, the tenant pulled me to the side and said, you know what? I've been here for 30 years. I paid off this guy's mortgage. All I could think of was this is not my client, but there was a lot of things going through my head. So I know this works. And I also know that you could end up being that person that pays off somebody else's mortgage.
Absolutely. And that rings true. Now, another way we got to look at it from a communications perspective, right? We've got to have our information to talk to and go after, as well as use it from who's next, right? NAR, I think, does a great job. We get a home buyer sell report, tells them what they do, what they want, how they move forward. And that's great market data. But one of the other things to think about is your MLS system is great. You can find market trends. You can find year over year buyers, sellers, and you can break this out into super micro niched areas. So I can understand what's going on, find that hotspot that I want to market to, find the information I want. But here's the trick to this. And here's how I want you all to think about how we look at these tools. Not only can we use this for research on knowing where and how to market, but when you use that same information, the consumers are looking for that same data. So now you have marketing material that you can put into landing pages that come out into this conversation. And with that, one of the things that I want to make sure that we're talking about is when we do those landing pages, they already exist, right? A lot of CRMs that you already have them out there, but you have tools, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but you got tools like Google Forms and ManyChat for a lack of better descriptions that will all have built these forms in here that you don't spend any more money on. But I don't want to hesitate. I jumped ahead a little bit. I want to go back and talk about expired cancels because one of the things I want to make sure we talk about is it's another not an untapped resource, but a very limited resource. We've gone years and years without really having a ton of expired cancels, at least in our communities. Over the last, Carrie, 2 years, we've seen an uptick.
I've seen a change just a little bit, and I've seen, and what's interesting that you're talking about cancel and expires is Some markets have access to tools that allow you to go back in time with the expireds, and you can actually put in expires in, and I can guarantee 99.9% of the time that the house hasn't been relisted in the multiple listing service. So if you had access to tools like Realist, you can go and look for the bottom of the market, and I can look for a canceled or an expired, and then I can mail. Now, I'm not going to mail to anything that at the bottom of the market, let's say 2013, and say, "Hey, you tried to list your house in 2013, call me." I'm just going to mail, because what I know is if the property was on the market in 2013 and it hasn't sold, you might still be interested, but I just need to show you why.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an extremely solid point. Um, I think those are great. And again, what we're trying to do right now is collect information. We're trying to collect the database, trying to go that from there. We talked about landing pages just a little bit. I do want to reference the fact that when we call things landing pages, and I try not to overstep our terms, I'm talking squeeze pages. I'm talking about pages that say, I'm going to give you something of value for something of value. Our value is what? Name, email address, phone number, if we really have great content, right? By the way, the more you ask, the better the value has to be given to all of that stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense, because if I ask you for your name, your email, your phone number, your address, and your social media, well, first of all, if they give it to you, it's probably a better lead. But if the more you ask for, it makes it harder for someone to fill out the information. So I agree.
So I think it's huge. And again, I'll go back to content marketing.
So the first step in communication is you have to figure out how you want to communicate when you start to generate all of these leads. Is it via phone? Is it via text message? Is it, where is this information going to come from? And I know how I like to communicate, but how do you like to communicate, and how does the consumer, or where is your network going to come from?
Right. So when you look at this stuff, right, those communications or who you're talking to varies in various formats. Like as Carrie said, your sphere, and even in that sphere, they may want to communicate differently. You got renters to buyers. There's going to be different formats and different ways of communicating. Is it social media? Is it direct mail? Is it text messaging? Is it email? What is those methods you want to use? And I'll be honest, I don't know if Carrie's got the magic touch. I know I have not. It's trial and error. You're going to figure out which audience is out there and which one communicates a certain way. There are stats that show you certain conversations, but in my experience, it varies which one works. What we were trying to do is make sure we are collecting addresses. That is the only goal we have with all the stuff that we are doing here. The bigger your database is, the more business you're going to have.
And so, when we think about anywhere you can collect an address, let's talk about social media, cultivation without the spend. And so let's tie in how we can leverage what we already have. A roadmap to social media is, now, first of all, you can post on social media. You can post on social media every single day. You can create content to create content. You can be focused. You could test social media. Right now, there's this thing called Are You Group 7 on TikTok? It took me a minute. And group 7 meant that if you were seeing that video, that means you saw that person's 7th video of the day. There's so many different strategies out there. You could just post because you want to create engagement. You could post because you just want people to be aware that you exist as a real estate agent. And you could create content to educate, or you could create content to be entertaining. My ultimate goal for social media is I need people to know who I am, and I want them to engage and ultimately end up in my list. So one strategy could be that you're leveraging data, because we all have access to data. If I can explain data, you can explain data. Back when I was in high school, I was going to be a famous clothing designer. I hated math. But today, when it comes to data, I have realized that if I could break it down to a level for the public and they can understand it, I am more likely to convert. So if I can take data, use it in social media, and create, like Justin said, a landing page, a squeeze page, then I'm more likely to add them to my list. So let me show you what I mean. I can take data that I access either from the multiple listing service, my local association, the state association, and I like RPR, and I can take that information and I can put it into consumable content. And so once I put it into something that's consumable, and again, I can put information over on LinkedIn. I like to take data and I like to throw it into ChatGPT or Google Gemini, and I like to have it help me with a blog post, and I can put it on LinkedIn. And I'm here to tell you it works, because I've had the economic development department reach out to me because I'm the only one talking about the market and the shift and what's happening in the city that I live in. I also am licensed in Florida, and I have access to different tools. So I like to leverage tools like RPR. For the value, it's worth every single penny just for RPR with the National Association of Realtors. And so I can log into RPR, go to research, neighborhood market trends, put in any city and state and create a script. And I can take that same script. I could use it just like it is in email, on social media. I have Canva templates, or I can take that script and make video content. I could take that script and make social media content. You name it, I can do it, and I can be interviewed with my own content and give somebody the questions. And so I can to give you an example, I have used market data in West Chicago, Illinois. It's a suburb in Illinois, not Chicago. And so I take that same information and I can put it in ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to put in a table view ways I can talk about the data on social media. So this is an actual Instagram post, and I took I took different data, Carol Stream, and I created a blog post, and I get more engagement on a blog post on LinkedIn as opposed to just saying, here's my listing. I now am credible because I am creating content that people want to consume. And then once I create content like this, my goal is to get you to give me information. So if you would like more details, if you would like information about your city, you can fill out my form and I will automatically send you updated information for whatever city you're in. Or I can say, I will give you a market analysis, the sky's the limit. And then eventually you end up in my CRM. If you're like, well, Carrie, what if I don't want to use specific data? You could also create free downloads. I know that RPR has white pages that are built for you, or data sets with Canva, or you can use tools like Canva that don't cost you anything extra. And again, remember, the ultimate goal is that you, bing, get an email.
Right. I mean, here's the thing, right? Carrie just kind of gave us a big hint. It's about collecting the information, and how we collect that stuff is, I think, the most interesting part of this. Carrie just gave you, I think, one of the best tips in the world, because most of us have a Gmail account. And what we don't know is all the stuff that Gmail gives us for no additional cost. And Google Forms is a huge example of that. That little form with a simple little add-on generates a bunch of business. And I'm going to tell you, we do what we preach, right? So when you see QR codes, it's going to go to a Google form. And you see that here today, that's what it's going to be there for, because it lead generates and it works well. But there's other tools to think about that don't have to cost you a ton of money, and really to try them out costs you nothing at all. ManyChat being one of them. ManyChat is such a powerful tool. Carrie does this very well, and I know a couple other people that do this real well. They'll be on Instagram, they'll be on a social media tool, and they say text guidelines, downloadable, whatever the word you want to say, first-time home buyers, whatever you want to put in there. And with that, ManyChat's attached into your Instagram account through an add-on solution, and it will then automatically give them that download. You automatically get the lead, right? It's a share. It's a lead generation solution. But you're also trying to build conversations, right? So Facebook Messenger is another great example of what happens with that. There's not a total lead generation in there, but people will communicate with you. You do not have to be a friend to communicate. It helps, because you will get lost if you're not. But people reach out to me all the time asking questions, whether they're a friend to me or not. And that's a lead. As well as you do have text messaging. Remember, not every lead is brand new. Some leads already exist in your database, and your database is your phone. Quite literally, we walk around with a pocket database every day of the week. So exactly right. One of the things we want to make sure that we are doing inside here is leveraging that. We can start text messaging. By the way, we're at a very interesting time right now, and this is a tip I love to give all the time. Even iPhone has finally figured this out. You can delay send text messages.
You can in iPhone? Okay.
They marketed it not too long ago.
I got to go figure it out.
I'm not going to say it's easy, but I will tell you, in my lovely world of Android, I will start spending early November, and I will start going through my contact database and wishing people happy Thanksgiving. You can do that for all the holidays that's coming up. You can start putting out there delay.
Yeah, you could any holiday, whether it's Halloween, could depending on who you are, it's a holiday for some. But yeah, you could do that for just about. That's a great idea.
Right? So you got all the good holidays. I do it all the time. And the best thing about it is I do some of it so far ahead of time. When people start texting me back, I go, oh, shoot, that's right. Somebody already sent it to me. It's automated text messages. You got direct mail, same thing. There's a lot of services out there now that are built-in programs that really don't cost you a whole lot more money that will send postcards. By the way, and Carrie's had proof throughout this whole session, paper products are working again. Those postcard mailers are being out there, because if you think about your mail right now, how much do you see in your mailbox? I don't see much. I see the big packet mailers for all the coupons and all the, all that stuff. But I don't get, besides bills, I don't get a lot of mail anymore. So it's starting, I think it's going to be back on the track. And then I want you to think about how you can look at what you do on a day-to-day or a week-to-week basis that generate business leads. Are you door knocking? And are you collecting? Are you being diligent? Are you collecting leads? Are you going to an open house? And are you having some sort of form, whether paper or digital, that is collecting information? If you're not, you're missing literally a warehouse of gold. You are missing opportunities in your business that you don't have out there that we could be communicating down the road. The question becomes, what do you do with it afterwards? You're saying, great, Justin, I've got 500 names. I'm going, awesome. What do you do? Well, again, it's going to be about using that as a conversion engine. These are your people you are collecting, but not everybody is what we traditionally like to call an A buyer or an A seller, an A client, whatever. There's BECs. You pick your terms that you like to use. But when you're in here, you want to start thinking about how you can filter these folks out. How are you emailing them? How are you communicating with them? What are you sending them? Going back to what Carrie has been talking about this whole time. She's built blog posts. Those blog posts, by the way, could have been a newsletter that she could just write. Now, Carrie, can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
If I write a LinkedIn blog post, should I not? Why would people say I shouldn't write it as an email?
So if my goal is to write as a LinkedIn blog post, why not send it as an email, or what
Right.
what would my what
Why
would my
people
thinking
stop?
process?
Yeah. Why would?
I would, so in my mind, I want to write it as a blog post because I want to generate new business, but I also want to, and I would take that same information and change it into an email that's consumable, not too long, because I already have a database. And here, and that's a really good example of everything that you do has the opportunity to work. I have now been posting on social media and LinkedIn, and I have a database. And one of my friends from elementary school reached out and said, Carrie, you posted something about I grew up in Broadview, Illinois, went to school in Maywood, Illinois. And she said, you've been talking about Maywood and I can't find it. And I knew where I had posted it. So I knew she saw it on LinkedIn, and I had also posted it on Instagram. So what I know is I want it to be in multiple places because it's going to hit different people. Now, this just happens to be a friend, even though she could also be a client. She's not in my database because she hasn't sold or bought houses with me yet. And I'm different when it comes to my friends. We talk a little bit differently. They call me, they ask me questions, but until they're really ready, they're not in my database yet. And I know that sounds crazy, but you'd have to be around my grade school friends to know that's
No. I think there's truth to that, right? I think everybody. I'm not a big mantra of everybody belongs in your database. I just don't believe in it. When they raise your hand, 100%, and it's a different conversation at that point in time. But you nailed what I was trying to lead you to the answer for, right? We get caught up too many times. Well, I wrote that in LinkedIn. I'm not going to put that in my email. Why? Because that's a different audience. Everyone consumes information differently. Like I watch me and my girlfriend go through our phones. I will go through YouTube. I will go through TikTok. She goes through Facebook. Right? We're getting the same stuff. We share some of the same videos.
And you got to be able to touch people where they are. And a lot of times we don't understand that if you were to look at Pew Research, for example, different generations consume content differently. My mother, who, I'll say it like this. She's retired. She's been retired for a long time. She's on Facebook, but she is consuming YouTube more than any other platform. Yeah. So I know that I need to reach the baby boomer either on Facebook or now YouTube. And if you look at Pew Research, they're saying of all of the generations, everyone is using YouTube. So when I create content, I have to think about who's my audience. How do I make it entertaining? Because my 22-year-old said, Mom, you have to talk faster. You got to get rid of the ums. You got to get rid of the Gen X pause at the beginning of the video. And I'm all for learning from the next generation. And so we can take everything that we're talking about today and make it consumable for the audience we're trying to reach to get them into an actual funnel.
Right. So when you think about your CRM, I want you to think about your CRM not only from this perspective, but also from tagging, right? Because I think it's going to help answer what me and Carrie just got done talking about just a little bit. Because one of the things I want us to think about is those segmentations and those tags is how you're going to incubate that database. Every tag, every category that we give them is going to be a different strategy. Is it an email? Is it a text message? Is it a link to a YouTube video? What is it we are doing? And that's how we need to think about that. If we are not thinking about that incubation period inside that database, we are missing money, literally out the door. I mean, it's kind of like the old advertisements where you see a cracked window just blowing money out the window. Same thing. If we're not incubating through tags, in our database, we're missing opportunities, but we need to think about it differently. And most of us are not thinking about it that way. We are thinking about it as it's family, it's friends, it's this. No, 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 no. Is it to what Carrie just said? Maybe it's the baby boomers. Maybe it's Generation X. Maybe it's the millennials or the Zs. How are we doing that? And when you do that, you can, especially some of the more sophisticated CRMs this day, but you could do it yourself very easily with ChatGPT free account. You could build a strategy for every tag you have, and that's how you market to them without making a whole lot of difference into it. And I guarantee you, your conversions will change.
And what's interesting when you talk about incubation, a lot of times real estate agents feel like you have to go spend more money, but you can leverage, when we say leverage the tools you already have access to, what does your brokerage provide? What does your local association or the multiple listing service provide? You know, I am still good with the Microsoft Excel spreadsheet because it's a backup. But does your multiple listing service serve as a client relationship management tool? Can you add tags? You might be able to add tags. In my case, and for both of us in Illinois, we can track where the client came from. We can track that the client closed. We can put them as active, hot. So you can, you know, put them in the incubation segmentation of where they are in their journey or their roadmap to home ownership, selling, all within a tool that doesn't cost you anything extra. But I can almost guarantee, Justin, a lot of these agents here have not even taken all of the classes that are given to them, probably at no additional cost.
Well, I will tell you from a lead generation perspective, that might be the best tip ever heard. Take the classes that don't cost you any money. There's always something there.
Right.
So with that, I do want to ask you, Carrie, I'm going to have you lead off first on this. Please make sure you tell us at least one right off the bat of your favorite hack that you have out there. I want something we haven't talked about.
So my favorite hack when we talk about building a business is, I'm going to go back to the beginning. It's data. Know the numbers. Back before AI, it makes it sound like back before color
Before the
TVs.
wheel.
Right. So right before the wheel. So now we've got AI. But even before AI, when my husband got licensed in 2017, I sat down and we talked about median sales price. How many days does it take to get to contract? How many showings should you have before you get to contract? Are you in a buyer's market, a stable market, or a seller's market? If you can explain those data sets, you can convert a buyer, a seller, a tenant, or a landlord, or convince someone to wait, or convince someone of the best time to list their home just based on data. And when Mark got licensed, I knew he was not going to sit and become a researcher and look at the data every single day, but I did know that he would do a fill in the blank. So I actually have a fill in the blank story for a seller and a fill in the blank for the buyer. If you're working with a buyer, this is what you should know if you're working with a seller. But now that we have access to AI, whatever the platform is, I can take the same data, write it down. I can physically write it, or I could put it in a note, or I could go right to my AI tool and say, give me, based on median sales price, the number of days it takes to get to contract, what type of market I'm in, how many showings, create a bullet pointed list to have a conversation with a buyer or a conversation with a seller to help them understand the value of knowing the market and if they should make a decision to buy or sell a home today. With that same data, having a conversation with the client, I can now, going back to create content on social media, I can create videos, I can write a blog post. I also know that if I'm using this information consistently, because now in ChatGPT I can have projects, I upload the data sets every single month. And as I'm thinking of this, I almost have 12 months worth of content. I will be able to ask AI, ChatGPT, to give me all of the data from a year ago and see if there's any patterns, are there any changes, and can we predict the market? All from using the data that we have access to every single day. To me, that is one of my favorite hacks.
I could not agree more. The things that I laugh about so hard is, again, before AI, I was already strategically going after people and that stuff based on data points we knew and knew what converted. I didn't need AI for that. To be honest with you, AI makes my life easier. I still don't need it. I could go back to the old ways tomorrow and be good at all times. So I love that. Here's what I'm going to say. My favorite hack, especially when we have been at events like we're at and doing things that we are doing, is just don't overthink it, right? You already have the tools. You already have the methods. You just got to take action. As Carrie already said, Take the class to learn how to. I get we may not instinctively know what to do, but the data's there, the opportunity is there. We don't have to go and find out what's going on. It's what I call the tool versus the crutch. There are a lot of us that come out in life and say, oh, this new marketing software, it's going to save my world. I'm going to tell you a quick story, and we're going to end this because it always makes me laugh. I first started in real estate. I was with this company. The software company came in, said, hey, I got all this postcard stuff. We're going to do this for you. It's going to be great. It's awesome. And I bought it, and I loved it. It was awesome. I'm building stuff. It's great. I go to the conference within about, I don't know, it had to be like 6 months after I bought the software. And I went to the vendor. I said, this stuff's awesome. There's a lady walks up. She comes up to me. She goes, that's great. How much have you sold from that? I'm like, I haven't even sent a card yet. It was a crutch. It wasn't a tool. Right. So you got to find the ones that are tools, not crutches. It made me feel great. It accomplished nothing because I did nothing with it except for cost me money. And that's hopefully what we're trying to get through here today, is to help you to do that next and find out, Carrie, what's next? Oh, sorry. We're trying to find out what else, or me, whatever. We are trying to help you figure out what else you need to do, what else you need to be looking for, and how you're going to do. So we have suggestions for you for the next steps. And they are,
What's one or two things you're willing to do daily or weekly? I always like to say, create that list of what you're willing to do, not what someone wants you to do. Justin gave you a really good example of buying the product or the tool, but you never use it. What are you willing to do? Because if you find out what you're willing to do, it's easier to get through the boredom. Then remain consistent and always ask for the business.
ask is the key. So I want to thank you all for being here. I hope you got something from us doing this. I'm going to tell you right now, you literally just got to hear either when Carrie's driving or when I'm driving. This is what we do pretty much on a very consistent basis. Thanks again for being here. I just want to put one last reminder out here. This and much more, you're going to see Carrie and us at NAR NXT on November 16th, sometime in the morning. Look it up, be there, show up. It will probably be more entertaining. We'll be heavy caffeinated, I am sure, by that point in time. So please attend, and we will see you there.